Okay, so we said we were going to transition into like a bit of a grading period, Adam, about the season that was. So let's get into it because I feel like we talked a little bit. We went a little long on the coaching situation, but let's start with the forwards. And there were a couple standouts: a new addition in Elias Lindholm, David Pastrnak, Morgan Geekie, Pavel Zacha. Where would you like to start? I'll let you pick the first player. Give us your grade, and we'll go from there.
All right, I'm going to start with 88 because he had a terrible season. F. No, he was unbelievable. With all the Bruins struggles this year, to have the season that he had was just awesome. So I'm going A+++. Oh, we only got 2 pluses up there? All right, fine. A++. 43 and 63. 106 points. 3 straight 100-point seasons. He's behind Espo and Orr for the most in Bruins history in terms of consecutive 100-point seasons. Most consecutive 40-goal seasons. He's third on that list too. 4 straight now. He's 18th in most goals per game in NHL history. The only active players that are ahead of him are Austin Matthews and Alex Ovechkin. And it's not just the season on the whole, Sophia, and I know we want to get through a number of different players here, so I'll try to keep this as concise as possible. But since January 1st, he was the best player in the National Hockey League. 30 goals, 39 assists, 69 points in 43 games for David Pastrnak. Just an unreal run. Not only the run itself, but under the circumstances in which he was able to do that, right? Because the team was struggling. The uncertainty, the cloud of uncertainty that lingered over the state of the team and the direction and that they were going to go. And then the trades that happen. And for him to still play at a high level, an elite level, was incredible. So A++ for David Pastrnak.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As you guys know, and obviously as you know, I missed most of the season, and I remember watching a little bit from home and being surprised at the beginning and the outcome. And I know David Pastrnak was getting a little bit of heat for like a slower start, but everyone on the team was struggling in that position. But like you said, after January 1st, just like absolutely went with it. And that's a cool thing to see too, just the going through adversity and like turning your own season around in the way he did, maybe struggling a little bit at the beginning, or, I don't know if there were mistakes at the blue line or, whatever it was with David, but I know that he wasn't happy and the team in general wasn't happy with where they were at. And he just ran away with it. And even after the playoffs kind of seemed to be out of the question, maybe not mathematically eliminated, he didn't slow down. And I don't think it was for himself. I don't think it was like, okay, I really want to reach, this milestone. I think it was just him and his part making sure he, as a leader, showed the younger guys that, like, even though we're out of it, this is how we prepare, this is how we show up, and this is how we're going to play, regardless of whether we're making the postseason or not. This is how we're going to do interviews. I remember, I think it was you. It could have been Razor. You can tell me if this sounds familiar. I think he got 2 penalties in a game near the end and really took responsibility for that in first intermission interview. Maybe it was post-game. I can't rember.
Was it a good interview?
It was a great interview. So
it must have been me, yeah.
It must have been you. I can only remember the answers, but whoever asked them got great answers out of David Pastrnak. But it's something we talked about on the show with Jaffe and Barry, that, taking responsibility, not like for his mistakes, which he did. And he just really led by example on and off the ice and didn't slow down. In fact, ramped it up even when the circumstances were dire. So I completely agree. Love to see that. And I saw personally a lot of growth of David Pastrnak in the room as a voice and as a person. So hope, love to see that continue. And it gives, I'm sure, management and fans, hope that in the summer, like this guy isn't an up and down streaky player. He remains consistent. Even if he struggles, he can get out of it. So that's David Pastrnak. I think the natural transition, I was going to go Pavel Zacha, but the natural transition is obviously Morgan Geekie, who I'm assuming has an A in his grade, but let's get it from you first. What did you give him?
First of all, Razor, I love you, buddy. I was just throwing some shade out of love. By the way, yeah, just to put a bow on the Pastrnak conversation, on and off the ice, the growth has been incredible, and it's been fun to watch. So hopefully that continues as the Bruins add pieces, hopefully this summer, to help improve their situation moving forward. All right, Geeks. A. Yeah, no, you're right. No, it can't be anything other than an A. 33 goals, 24 assists this year, both career highs. So you got the Boston, and set career highs last year was 17 and 22. He had 22 goals in 180 games before joining the Bruins. That was with the Hurricanes and the Kraken. And, what's he got now? 50 goals in 153 games. And so just incredible growth there. And another guy since January 1st that really stepped it up, 25 goals in the National Hockey League. That was sixth. That was tied for sixth. The only guys ahead of him were David Pastrnak, Alex Ovechkin, Tage Thompson, Jason Robertson, and he was tied with Leon Draisaitl. I mean, that's elite company right there. Absolutely. Yes. So Geekie gets an A. And the good news, if you're looking for some good news from that press conference that the Bruins front office and ownership had last week, is that the fact that they're talking about a contract extension. So that's great news moving forward.
And we keep talking about throughout the season, like, leadership core, leadership group. He wasn't really mentioned in it, at least in the conversations I was having. And after coming back to the team and having a lot of one-on-ones with him off camera, or just seeing how he handled scrums, I was like, wait a minute, what about this guy? Yeah, he's young. I think 26, 27, but so are the other guys.
He's 26, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the reason maybe he wasn't talked about much before, and Brick has alluded to this, Charlie McAvoy's alluded to this, it's difficult to be a leader or seen as a leader if your on-ice performance isn't, great. And if you don't have a lot of history, being, amazing. And then maybe in your later years, it's dropping off a bit, but what it takes to be one of the best of the best. And I guess Morgan never really got there. And now when you're playing super well, and he's very well-spoken, very smart, very intelligent, very personable, if that continues and if the contract is signed, I can very, very much see him as part of this leadership group, and would be very comfortable with him, knowing his character, continuing the traditions that he didn't quite, come in and see it for years, but he knows a little bit about it. So I don't know if you agree, but I think Morgan can definitely be a big part of this leadership group.
He's a really smart guy too,
very
right?
Smart, yeah.
He's a good interview. He's really thoughtful with his answers. And I think, that intelligence, translates on the ice as well. And I think he and David Pastrnak really developed some really good chemistry as they, started to play more together as the season went on. And both guys had talked about getting to know each other and knowing where to be on the ice. And I think that translated into a lot of success. So, the other thing with Morgan Geekie too is he's shown to have some versatility, right? And he came in sort of as a couple of years ago as a guy you thought might be a third line type center maybe, and then ended up on the wing and then moved to center a little bit, and now this year playing on his offside and finding that success. So kudos to him, and I think that speaks to his intelligence, the cerebral part of his game. But yeah, to your point, Sophia, I think he is one of those guys that has the makings of a leader in the room, right? So hopefully they can work out a deal, and he's here for years to come.
Pavel Zacha, I'm going there only because we were going to start with the newer, additions a little bit later, continue with the newer additions a little later. But let's go to Zacha, who, I was going to give my 2 cents, but you were leading, and then I'll follow up. But what do you think?
B- would be the grade for Pavel Zacha this year. Didn't have a bad year. Didn't have a great year. And I think we had mentioned earlier, and we've talked about it throughout the season, really, about guys who didn't have the same year that they had the season prior, right? And so took a little bit of a dip. Now, Zacha, one of those guys that, he was dealing with an injury, right? As a lot of guys are. And we found out, he had a knee procedure, a minor one, so he's getting that cleaned up. But he found success with David Pastrnak and Morgan Geekie, and then he got bumped to a different line with Casey Middlestat because the Bruins wanted to see what that looked like, and so he moved from center to wing. Another guy who's versatile, and also it's more than just the goals and assists with Pavel Zacha. He's a 200-foot player, and so he brings more to the table than just filling up the box score in the stat sheet. But he had career highs with the Bruins the last couple of years, and even this season was his third most productive season in the National Hockey League. So, he had a B- year in a year where a lot of guys really, really struggled.
Yeah, I'm just looking up his face-off percentage. So just a little lower than last 2 seasons ago, 54.8, 53.2.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Nope.
I mean, over 50. That's great.
Right.
You want that.
Yep.
But yeah, I would agree. And again, we were talking off camera. Tough for me to give a grade because I missed so much of the season, but just something I felt when I came back was just I think Zacha would have wanted a better year for himself too. It just wasn't a standout year for him. He can't have a standout year every year, but I'm sure next year, I think he probably wants a little bit more from himself. And like I said, overall, the team's struggling. So I agree with your grade, kind of maybe a little below expectations of what he wanted and what the team wanted from him. And it's nice to know that there's room. He wasn't at his ceiling, and we'll see what he can bring next season. Okay, getting to one of the newer additions, Elias Lindholm, which I think needs no introduction. I think he himself could say it was much below expectations, but you got to be part of that ride all season. What is Lindholm getting?
Yeah, he gets a C, average year, maybe slightly below average in terms of the expectation that was attached to him when the Bruins signed him to the 7-year, $54.25 million deal, right? And you remember, you go back to that to last offseason, the Bruins, what did they need to address? Well, they needed to address, the centerman play down the middle after the loss to the Panthers in the playoffs, and they needed to get more physical, and they addressed that. And I know we'll talk about some of the other players coming up, but in terms of Lindholm, there were high expectations. This is a player that you wanted to be your number one center and play alongside David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand, we found out at the end of season player availability that he was dealing with a back injury. And that back injury went all the way back to August before training camp even started. And we knew that he was hobbled a little bit in training camp, and like many other players, had a disjointed training camp. And so he got out of the gate slow and never really found his offensive game. And so what was encouraging, if you're looking ahead to next season, Sophia, is the fact that, he started to pick it up a little bit, right? And so you look at the final numbers, 17 goals, 30 assists. It's more than he had between the Flames and Canucks last year. Ended up playing all 82 games, so it shows you a little bit of the toughness there. And despite being hurt, 9 points, four goals, 5 assists over the last 9 games, 55.2% in the faceoff circle. And again, he's a 200-foot player, a cerebral player, so a lot of what he doesn't show up on the stat sheet. But in terms of the expectation, the performance relative to the expectation, it was below average. Yeah,
and you know what? I'm going to comment a little bit about having a first year with a new team and a new city and all that. Okay, there are a ton of – this happens all the time. It's part of the business. Players get traded. They have to move their families, uproot them. And so many of them, you might not remember that that's happening behind the scenes because they are playing so well, or maybe they are, at where they're supposed to be in terms of expectation. But that does play such a big factor. And it was a weird training camp, which is what – Don Sweeney mentioned. He wasn't happy with the training camp and how it started, and obviously he missed some of that. Fine, you don't want to believe that a tough training camp / an injury at the start of the season can derail an entire season for you. But Sometimes it can, and there were so many other factors that we saw that can add up. But I'd like to add that I think anytime you're in a second year of a home that you're building with a family is going to be a whole lot easier. There's just, as someone who moved myself, that first year was a whirlwind. It was so fun. And maybe no one's noticing the little things that I do in my job in front of the camera that I feel like I'm like, oh my God, I was so rattled, or I, didn't have enough time to prepare. There's just so much settling that happens after you've had a full season and a full year with a new team or organization or city. So that in itself, I'm hoping will just not be a distraction or whatever the word you want to use, but he'll just be coming in and being able to be, pick up where he left off. And I kind of want to slightly chirp Billy and Barry because, jokingly but not, I remember, I don't know when it was. It must have been March, but I think Elias Lindholm was starting to score again, and he had point streak or consecutive games with a point. And I said to them, I don't know if it matters, but do you think ending on a high note for Elias Lindholm, because the gap's going to be 4 or 5 months before the first game versus the last game of the season, is that too long of a gap for it to matter? And they're like, it doesn't matter that he ends on a high streak. He's going to forget it by the time next season starts. And then he kept picking up points. And I can't remember, I don't know if you have it, I don't have it, but the amount of points he had in the last 10, 15 games. But it obviously was a significant jump. He was kind of stuck, not producing, and then he kind of picked it up. And then the guys on the desk were like, this is going to be great for him going into the offseason. This is going to really matter. And I was like, wait a minute. I asked you that a couple of weeks ago, and you said no. So I'm just calling them out a little bit about that. But I do think, even though it's not where he wanted, I think getting that little momentum for 10 games does give a player something in the summer. So I'm hoping he can build something off of that.
9 points over the last 9 games. It was the month of April where he really started to pick things up. And just to, support your argument, Brick believes the same thing, right? And we've talked about that on this podcast, where he believes that individual success of a player can carry over into the following year in terms of building confidence into the offseason, not necessarily team success, right? So if the team goes on an 8-game winning streak, towards the end of the year, that success doesn't carry over into the following year. It's more about the individual. And so Elias Lindholm, hopefully that can be a springboard for success going into the offseason and then into next season.
Totally agree.